Shiki was just an average delinquent who had been expelled from school, but when a mysterious stranger attacks him and kills his father, he learns that he has demon blood in his veins and decides to master his powers to get revenge. Long ago, a race of demons called Oni lived in Japan, destroying everything and killing humans as they pleased. No one could dare to stand up against them. But then, a brave man named Mamo emerged as humanity's savior. He attacked the base of the Oni, killing thousands of them. But that was just the beginning of a long war between Mamo and the Oni that continues even in the modern age. Unaware of how this old fairy tale is linked with his destiny, a teenager named Shiki is cleaning his firearm collection while talking to a friend on the phone. He laughs about the fact that he recently got expelled from school because of a fight, and says that he does not even mind it, because he was sick of seeing the ugly face of his classmates each day. Just then, his adoptive dad, Tsuyoshi, arrives there and hits him on the head, demanding him to explain why he got expelled from the school. Shiki tells him to leave him alone, and Tsuyoshi moves ahead to hit him one more time for being an ungrateful bastard. But Shiki dodges him this time. Tsuyoshi, then, ASKS, Shiki, what the hell is up with all these guns? Because they run a wine shop and not a gun shop. And not a gun shop. Shiki taunts him that the wine shop is barely running, because everyone knows that he's losing customers. Tsuyoshi claps back, mocking him for acting so high and mighty after being expelled from school, and Shiki takes it personally. He says that he will never become a loser like Tsuyoshi, and he is really relieved that they are not related by blood. That hurts the old man's feelings, but then he heads downstairs because of a business call. Tsuyoshi leaves for a delivery and Shiki sighs, wishing that some rich man had adopted him instead. He then tries to practice his aim, but an explosion outside the house startles him. He goes outside to see what is happening, but a dense fog blocks his view. Suddenly, a gust of strange black mist shoots out of the fog and Shiki falls back in shock. The mist follows him, grabbing his leg and dragging him outside before dropping him on the street. As Shiki gets up and wonders what the hell is happening, a scary old man dressed in white appears there, ready to attack him. However, the very next moment, Tsuyoshi returns there, and he rams his car into the attacker before telling Shiki to get into the car. He drives away, as fast as he can, saying that their only option is to leave the country now. However, Shiki has still not processed what just happened. Him, ASKS, his dad. How could he just kill someone with his car? But Tsuyoshi tells him that the man is not dead yet, and they need to get as far away from him as they can. He is really distressed and tells Shiki to listen to him carefully, as they do not have much time. Tsuyoshi tells Shiki that he is a descendant of the Oni, and the guy who just attacked him is the descendant of Mamaro. Shiki tells him to stop joking because it is not the time for that, but Tsuyoshi tells him that he is serious. Just then, a blade made of black mist penetrates the car's roof, and Tsuyoshi barely dodges it. He realizes that the attacker has caught up to them, and then suddenly the windows of their car are covered by black mist, completely blinding them. Tsuyoshi stops the car near an abandoned warehouse, and quickly gets out of it, telling Shiki that they need to hide immediately. Just then, the car explodes, and when Tsuyoshi turns back, he finds that Shiki is missing. Luckily, he sees a trail of black mist entering the warehouse, and realizes that his son has been taken there. Inside the warehouse, Shiki finds himself trapped in a giant web made out of the black mist, with a scary guy named Samadare standing in front of him. Samadare tells Shiki that the only blood in his veins makes him nothing but a pest, and exterminating such pests is the job of the Mamotero agency. Shiki is still in shock that Samadare survived being crushed by a car, but just then, Tsuyoshi comes there telling him that the fairy tale of Mamo is a real story. He says that for thousands of years, Mamo and Otnu have been at war with each other through their descendants, who share their blood. Eventually, the Mamotero descendants joined hands and formed the Mamotero agency, gaining advantage in the battle and forcing the Oni to hide among humans to survive. Shiki still can't understand what is happening, but Tsuyoshi tells him to let Daddy handle it. Samadare suddenly creates two swords out of black mist, and in response, Tsuyoshi also unleashes the same ability to fight him. The two men dash towards each other, clashing their blades, and releasing a powerful shockwave. Tsuyoshi somehow pushes Samadare back, but he calls him weaker than he used to be back then. Samadare explains that the black mist is the unique ability only the descendants of Mamo can use, and Tsuyoshi was once his senior in the Mamotero agency. Shiki is aghast on learning that his dad is a descendant of Mamaro, but Tsuyoshi says that he has forgotten about that entirely. Samadare asks him if he has also forgotten how dangerous Oni are. He declares that, for the crimes of sheltering an Oni, Tsuyoshi will also be eliminated. Tsuyoshi responds by attacking him first, but he and Samader are equally matched in strength. Shiki can only watch their crazy fight in bewilderment, while Samader asks Tsuyoshi, why is he protecting a monster who only lives for destruction? Tsuyoshi tells him to shut up and tries dealing serious damage to him, but Samader is much faster than he expected. He easily dodges the attack, and then hits Tsuyoshi with a super fast combo, severely injuring him and knocking him out. Shiki is devastated on seeing his dad bleed out, and he curses Samader, saying that he will kill him. Samader, however, tells him that he is going to go to the afterlife with his dad soon. Just then, Tsuyoshi grabs his feet, and Samader asks him, why is he going this far, to protect an Oni? And he replies that he needs no reason to protect his son. He says that Shiki has not harmed anyone yet, and it is wrong to kill him just because he has only blood. Samader just creates a black mist sword to finish him off. And the rage boiling inside Shiki finally hits its limit. As his eyes turn red, he swears that he will kill the bastard, who is trying to hurt his dad, and his demonic powers awaken. He starts bleeding from every pore of his face, and his demonic horns sprout out of his head. Shiki yells that he will kill Samader, and when the man turns around to see him, he finds that Shiki is no longer restrained by the web. The very next moment, a bunch of guns made out of blood pop up next to his face, but, thanks to his quick reflexes, he manages to block all the shots. However, Shiki has already moved on from that location, and while Samader wonders where he is hiding, he notices blood dripping from the rooftop where Shiki is hanging upside down like a deranged Batman. Seeing his blood-covered form, Samader realizes that Shiki has awakened, and now he can fight, by manipulating his blood. But that is not even the scariest thing about fighting an OC. Suddenly, Shiki lunges towards him, pushing him back with his powerful strikes. Samader quickly flips the table on him, slashing his arm off. But Shiki jumps back and instantly regrows his arm. He then screams madly, and Samader begins to sweat because he realizes that this fight is not going to be easy. Shiki manifests his power in the form of numerous guns made out of blood, and Samader is forced to use all his strength and speed to block the bullets. Just then, Shiki fires a freaking missile at him, and thanks to his instinct, Samader dodges it by a very small margin. And the rocket explodes behind him. The old man is forced to run away from Shiki's ruthless assault, but then he throws his sword at him, hoping to take him down quickly. However, that is not nearly enough as Shiki quickly reaches him and kicks him away. Samader is too tired and injured to move fast enough, and Shiki steps on his face, before unloading a full military battalion worth of ammo on his ass. However, Samader somehow manages to get away with his life. Even though he is terribly injured, he curses Shiki, but then suddenly Shiki collapses, and the guns made of blood shatter. His only transformation is undone, and as he stares at his bloody hands, Shiki loses his mind, wondering what the hell just happened here. Samader recalls this as a typical reaction of people who awaken their only powers for the first time. With his remaining power, he summons a black mist sword again, deciding to finish his job right now. However, just as he is about to stab Shiki, Tsuyoshi jumps in between them, sacrificing himself to save his son. Samader asks him how he could risk his life to save the boy, even after seeing the monster he became. So Yoshi just thinks of how Shiki was a cute little boy and tells his old friend that it was not a bad thing to be a happy father, even if it was for a short period. Just then, some civilians gather at the site after hearing the explosion and call the fire department. And Samader decides to retreat for now. He turns into black mist and vanishes, leaving the injured Tsuyoshi and the confused Shiki alone. Shiki panics and tells his dad that he will call an ambulance, but he asks him to stop, because he knows this is the end. He just wants to talk to his son one last time at the end. Tsuyoshi tells him that he could never tell him about his own lineage, because that would mean telling him that there are people out to kill him. But now he can only ask Shiki to become strong enough to defeat both Mamatero and Oni, so that he can live freely and happily. However, Shiki shouts at him to shut up, because he is not done with him yet. He begins taking him outside, saying that they will talk after he gets better, and Tsuyoshi just smiles at him once before breathing his last. As he falls to the ground, Shiki loses his mind. He tries to wake him up first and then starts crying uncontrollably. Soon after that, a man on roller skates arrives there, and when Shiki turns around to see him, he knocks him out with a single tap to his head before taking him away to a place where only like him can become stronger. While he is unconscious, Shiki dreams of the happy moments when he used to play in the park, under his dad's watchful eyes. But then the dream turns dark abruptly. With Tsuyoshi dying at Samader's hand, Shiki wakes up with a jolt as he stares into the bloodshot eyes of Samader, but when he looks around, He finds himself gagged and tied to a chair in a large empty hall. Right behind him, the skater guy who kidnapped him is doing one-arm handstand, push UPS with his umbrella, and he gets back on his feet as soon as he sees Shiki awake. The edgelord introduces himself as Naito, a fellow Oni, and quickly manifests his horns. Shiki is too confused by everything, and he can't even pay attention to Naito, who refuses to tell him where they are right now. He informs him that his dad's body is stored safely in another place, and he brought him here for retrieval and evaluation. Nato then suddenly skates to the whiteboard in the corner and drags it closer to Shiki before flexing how fast and efficient it is to use roller skates instead of walking. Next, he begins explaining the Mamotero agency to Shiki, saying that he has already seen one guy who can control the black mist and use it like a weapon. The Mamotero agency finds and hunts on, and in response, the Oni created their own agency to fight back. Nato says that his job is to find newly awakened Oni like Shiki and bring them to a safe place where he can evaluate if they are worthy of joining the Oni agency. With that brief intro, he puts the whiteboard back in its place and then removes Shiki's gag so that he can interview him. As soon as he removes the gag, Shiki starts yelling at him to free him. He also curses Nato, threatening to kill him if he has harmed his dad's body, and Nato immediately deducts a point from his score that is already 0. He calls Shiki a pagal for not understanding what safely stored means, because he mentioned it a couple minutes earlier. Shiki gets mad at him and says there is no way he can trust a shady edgelord like him. C'est him. And Nato was not expecting anything else from him. He decides to deduct more points from Shiki's score the more he curses and demands to be set free, telling him to cooperate if he wants to pass the evaluation. Shiki does not give a monk about the evaluation, but he wants to be free quickly, so he tries holding his anger. However, he can't even do that properly, and Nato tells him to stop giving him the creepy look. Shiki snaps on hearing this, and Nato decides to evaluate him using a non-standard method. Because normal things do not seem to work with nut jobs. He takes off his tie, and before Shiki can even realize what is going on, Nato uses the tie to strangle him with his full strength. Shiki panics as he loses his breath, and Nato says that a creature's true nature is revealed when it is close to death, and that is what he wants to see. Shiki tries to resist with his full strength, but he can't get out of the chokehold, even after bleeding from every hole on his face. He soon loses consciousness, and Nato is disappointed in him. But the blood that Shiki just lost awakens as a result of its power. It turns into sharp spikes and attacks Nato, who dodges the attack without much difficulty. Suddenly he finds a Gatling gun, made of blood pointing at his head, and behind it Shiki is in his berserker state. He opens fire at Nato, and then backs away after he is satisfied. But his attacks did not even touch the edgelord, who protected himself by coating his umbrella in his blood. He deducts cent points from Shigeki's score because he does not even know how to use his Oni blood, and then decides to show him how it is actually done, even though he won't remember anything once the Ponce berserker state ends. Shiki suddenly lunges towards him, but Nato is prepared for everything, and a few minutes later, Shiki regains his consciousness, lying defeated on the ground. He can't understand what just happened, but then he looks at his red hands and panics, realizing that he went out of control again. Nato calmly sits on top of him, saying that it is natural that his memory is a blank, because when an Oni goes into berserk mode, they lose their mind. Around them, the hall is a total mess as a result of their fight, and Shiki tells Nato to stop lecturing him when he is also using his blood as a weapon. Nato immediately makes his blood umbrella disappear, telling Shiki that he never went berserk because he can actually control his power. He then declares that there is nothing to be SAID anymore because Shiki is disqualified from joining the Oni agency. Shiki still has no idea what the hell is happening, but if there is one thing he knows for sure, it is that Nato is ridiculously strong. He decides to swallow his pride and begs Nato to take him as his underling, because he wants to get stronger and avenge his dad. Nato immediately refuses his request, telling Shiki that someone like him, who does not use his brain while fighting, is always the first person to die in a real battle. He calls him a useless disgrace, who can neither control his brain nor his power. Shiki uses every ounce of his strength to hold back his rage. Nato then declares that it is time for him to dispose of Shiki. Because a berserk Oni is a liability to everyone, he uses his special ring to cut his thumb, letting a stream of blood trickle out. He turns the blood into an umbrella, and Shiki suddenly gets an idea about how to make him change his mind. He runs away from Nato's range, and then dashes towards him while dragging his fist on the ground. till it bleeds. Nato quickly turns his umbrella into a spiky shield that will protect him from any melee attack, and then calculates the possible moves Shiki can use. Shiki jumps up at the last moment, which was among the possibilities that Nato calculated, but then he surprises him by using the spikes to jump to the side and point a bloody gun at his face. Shiki puts all his focus into the gun, shooting a powerful shot with the recoil, sending him flying backwards. He can't believe that he managed to land a hit on Nato, but it turns out that he could not do it even this time. Nato simply blocks the blood bullet with his finger and shatters it, not giving Shiki any credit for the attack, because he went halfway to berserk mode in order to attack him. As Shiki seems to lose his mind again, Nato decides to finish him off with his special move. He puts himself in a protective cage and summons archers, made using his blood, ready to shoot at his command. However, as he notices Shiki fighting back against his berserker instincts and getting his power under control, Nato cancels his special move. Shiki is proud that he managed to control his power, but he falls on the ground because he just used up too much energy. Nato can't believe that not only Shiki controlled his powers, but he also suppressed berserker mode, which is not something everyone can do. He asks him how the hell did he do that, but Shiki smugly tells him to accept him as his underling to unlock the answer. Nato tells him that he will think about it, and Shiki decides to take that as a yes. He says that when Nato talked about controlling his blood, he did not understand, but when he saw him slice his thumb and use the blood to create a weapon, he got an idea. He thought that since they were both on, he could just ape his, and surprisingly that worked. He did not understand the fine details though, and he just let his arm bleed while yelling at it mentally to form a weapon. Shiki is still hyped that his gambit worked, and asks Nato what he thinks about that. Nato thinks that it is utter, because that is not how things work. From his experience, dumb and emotional teens, like Shiki, have a hard time controlling their blood, while rational and calm people like him have the best chance at using their power properly. He thinks that Shiki does not listen to reason, or even let his berserker mode control him, and he can use his raw instincts to brute force his power into obeying him. He thinks that it is a very rough method, but it can also give someone an explosive amount of power. He begins to wonder what to do with this unique case, when suddenly Shiki tells him that he needs power to avenge his dad and kill the man who murdered him. He tells Nato that if he takes him in as an underling and teaches him everything, he will become useful to him. However, Nato refuses to consider that possibility. He turns his umbrella into a spear, telling him that people like him are a risk to society because he did not even know that he could control his power, and just took a gamble. He says that he can accept him as a lackey, and then acts like he is going to stab him with a spear, but only hits the floor near his head. He tells Shiki that he won't accept him as an underling, but as a student, and that is really confusing for Shiki because he thinks both are the same thing. Nato tells him that he passed the test barely, but he will give him the chance to prove his abilities. Shiki can't make sense of what is going on. So, Nato decides to start from the basics. He tells him that they are on an island called Hell's Doorstep, which was known as Onagashima in the past. It was the place where the original Mamotero massacred demons, but now, it is a place where the Oni can live safely. At the center of the island, there is the Rosetu Academy, which is a military school that trains Oni to fight against the Mamotero agency. Shiki gets freaked out on learning that he is on an island, but Nato pokes his face, telling him that it is not important. The most important part is that the Rasetsu Academy will teach him everything from general education, controlling his Oni blood, fighting techniques, and the history between Mamo and Oni. Nato is Shiki's homeroom teacher, and he tells him more about how they do things here at the academy, but that is more than his pea-sized brain can handle. Shiki does not even care about that because all he wants to know is if he can become strong enough to avenge his dad. Nato can't give him any guarantee, but he tells him that if he can't become strong enough to fight the Matero agency, he will be expelled from school. Soon, Shiki gets dressed up, and is excited to go to a different kind of school, but Nato warns him that other people have passed the test this year, and he is probably the least skillful amongst them. Suddenly, Shiki remembers his dad, and asks Nato where his body is. Nato replies that they have kept him in the morgue, because they wanted Shiki to handle the funeral as per his beliefs. Shiki gets a bit gloomy on thinking about his dad's death, and Nato tells him that being a gloomy idiot is a waste of time, and he should focus only on becoming stronger so that he can get his revenge. Shiki says that he seems like a nice guy after all, and that embarrasses Nato, who speeds away telling Shiki that if he does not reach the class before him, he will be expelled. Shiki somehow catches up to him, and as he wonders how should he enter the class to farm the maximum amount of aura, Nato just kicks him through the door. Shiki feels like he got some aura dead because of his uncool entry. And he, asks, the masked boy named JYN, for some tissues for his nosebleed. JYN turns out to be an even bigger edgelord than their teacher, and he tells Shiki to stop talking to him. Shiki gets mad at that, and starts teasing him for not having his horns yet. JYN simply manifests his horns, saying that only dumb rookies who can't control the horns flaunt them all the time. This comment offends another guy named Akari, who also can't control his horns. Things start getting tense in the classroom with Shiki getting up close and personal with JYN. However, before things can get violent, Nato suddenly arrives behind them, and Shiki finds himself sitting right next to JYN. Without even realizing when it happened, JYN is equally shocked, but Nato does not have time to waste with what his students think. He says that for their first lesson they are going to play a game of tag. He takes all the students to the forest, telling them that they have an hour to get back to the school while avoiding being caught by him. Nato then declares that anyone who does not make it back to school in the time limit will be expelled, and he does not care about Shiki's objection. He then tells the students that they are free to use their powers, and he will only use his in case someone goes berserk. JYN confidently says that he might get killed if he does not use his powers, and Nato has no issue with that. Instead, he says that if someone kills him, they will graduate instantly, and then they can join any squad that they wish to fight the Matero agency. He then says that the school is there to prepare them for real-life challenges, and he's going to test them at each step. He asks everyone if they are ready, and Shiki replies that he is going to give it his all and ace the tests. Nato then reveals that there is another rule and takes out 2 balls that are still smaller than mine. He tells the students that they need to have a ball with them when they reach the academy to pass this test, and then suddenly throws them into the restricted area. The students think that since there are only 2 balls, they will have to fight for them. But then Nato reveals that they will be divided into teams. The first team has Shiki along with JYN and the timid pink-haired Omare. The second group has the delinquent named Dikati and the nerd Guji, while the third group has the nervous Roku and Quina, who seems the most confident out of everyone present there. Nato tells the 3 teams that he will enter the restricted zone 15 minutes after them, so that they can get a head start. But Shiki interrupts him, saying that he does not want to team up with the masked weirdo. Nato tells him that he will be expelled if he can't work in a team, and he is forced to take his words back. After that, Homer politely introduces herself to Shiki, who has never had any sort of female interaction in his entire life. He immediately gets butterflies in his stomach as he sees Homer approach him, and he confidently tells her that he will protect her. She gets flustered on hearing this and tells him that he does not need to go that far, because all she wants is to not get in his way. Next, she goes to introduce herself to JYN, but he is an agitated fan who does not even bother to respond to her. Homer's low self-esteem kicks in, and she starts crying and apologizing for talking to him. Shiki starts yelling at JYN for hurting the girl's feelings, and then he quickly moves on to comfort, telling her that she should not ruin her cute looks by crying. He then returns to taunt JYN, but the Tate fan tells him to stop being a beta-S. Nato interrupts their quarrel and tells them to head inside, because they do not have all day. JYN and Shiki immediately run towards the restricted forest, and after a while of staring around cluelessly, Homer also follows them. Inside, JYN starts jumping through the trees, like a ninja from Naruto, thinking about how killing Nato will earn him his graduation and the right to join whichever squad he wants. He wants to take this chance to get on the front lines and face his greatest enemy again. But then suddenly Shiki tries attacking him from behind, snapping him out of his internal monologue. JYN asks him what the hell is wrong with him, and Shiki replies that he is going to prove that he is stronger than him. JYN is all in for a fight as well, and he removes his mask to reveal some terrible scars around his mouth. Shiki is creeped out, but he says that only weaklings show off their old scars, but JYN does not fall for his taunts. Sumen Kitimi, he simply removes his gloves, revealing that his hand is covered in stitch marks too. He tears one of the stitches to let out his blood, and turns it into circular saws. Shiki is shocked to see this, because he thinks that the author of Chainsaw Man will sue them for copying his ideas. JYN tells him to stop wasting his time and run away if he is scared. But Shiki replies that if he runs away now, he won't be able to avenge his father's death. JYN is taken aback on hearing that, but then he suddenly grows menacing as he tells Shiki that they will never be able to understand each other. Shiki tells him that he does not want to understand him in the first place, and bites his thumb to release his blood. However, He fails to turn it into a gun this time, and panics, wondering what exactly he should do to make it work. He decides to fight back using a stick because that is the only option he has. But he soon realizes that he is no match for JYN, who can cut trees with just one strike of his chainsaw arms. Meanwhile, Homer is trying to find the two boys, when suddenly she hears the loud thud from trees falling on the ground. She suddenly panics, and her inferiority complex kicks in, thinking that she is not fit to be in a place like this. However, she cheers up a bit on thinking that Shiki called her cute, and she decides to look for him, not realizing that she was just a few feet away from one of the balls. At the same time, Shiki is trying to fight against JYN with his bare fists. JYN does not even use his chainsaw powers against him, and he is still able to whoop his with ease. Shiki keeps wondering how can he control his powers so easily, but then he realizes that Jin's ability is different from his tornadoes. He loses his focus while thinking about the true nature of their abilities, and JYN is able to knock him down with a single punch. Shiki feels frustrated because of this, and JYN decides to let the loser cry in peace. However, just as he starts walking around, Shiki gets back up on his feet, telling him that the fight is not over. The pissed JYN just sends a chainsaw towards him, and at the exact moment, Homer arrives there. Thanks to her negative survival instincts, she does not even notice she is walking right in the line of fire. Shiki panics on seeing this, and luckily he manages to get her to safety even though he gets slightly wounded in doing that. He quickly gets up from top of Homer and tells JYN to apologize to her, but JYN replies that it would have been her fault if she died from his weak attack. Shiki is pissed at this, but then, suddenly, he hears Homer chanting, "She is sorry," like a prayer. He tells her that it is not her fault, but Homer is in a trance, and she suddenly starts bleeding out from her nose. The blood slowly takes the form of a giant human, and both JYN and Shiki freak out, wondering what in the name of Attack on Titan is this. Tout de même, Homer tells them both to run away, because her female titan is going to kill them. Just as she says this, the female titan hits the ground with her full strength, and Shiki barely avoids getting hit by her attack. JYN, on the other hand, jumps right towards the female titan to fight back, but his chainsaws can't do much damage to her giant body. Shiki asks Homer if she can stop that thing, and she apologizes because she can't do anything. She suddenly collapses after losing too much blood, and Shiki decides to get her away from the female titan to help her. However, he is shocked to see the titan protecting her, and even JYN wonders if Homer's blood has a will of its own. Suddenly, the female titan starts spitting blood violently, and while JYN hides behind a rock, she takes the full force of the attack head-on. The crying Homer asks the female titan to stop calling her elder sister, and Shiki gets up confused about what she means. Homer once again asks him to run, but Shiki refuses, saying that she will die of blood loss if he does not help her, and he does not want to see anyone else die in front of him ever again. Suddenly, the female titan lets out a powerful roar whose shockwave reaches even the rest of the students outside the forest. Nato watches everything from a treetop, and he decides to let Shiki and JYN try to deal with Homer's blood release ability before he steps in. Back at the location of the battle, Shiki tries injuring himself to draw blood and use it as a weapon, but that does not happen. The female titan attacks him, and he dodges, but then the female titan scoops up some rocks from the ground and hurls them at him. He takes a hit and gets flung away. But the thing that hurts him most is how pathetically weak he is right now. He has never lost a fight before, but now, he is just a useless brat. He starts crying because of frustration, but then JYN comes out to join the fight and tells him to go home if he is going to cry, like a Shiki gets mad at him, and tells him that he was just sweating from his eyes. But JYN does not have time for that. He slices open his wounds again, and G creates two different types of chainsaws on either arm. The damage he took from the female titan's previous attack is still bothering him, but he is determined to win every fight in front of him. Nato just watches from afar, and he is impressed that JYN can create two types of weapons at the same time. He begins explaining how any blood can take any form they imagine, but it is often influenced by their past trauma, preferences and experiences. Meanwhile, JYN rushes towards the female titan, using the circular chainsaw to climb up. He then tries to ape Levi Ackerman by attacking the female titan's neck, but she sacrifices an arm to protect herself. While he fights the female titan, Shiki screams at his hand to make something. He wonders why he can't make a weapon, when JYN can. But then suddenly, he realizes that JYN only makes things for cutting. And even Homer has a personal connection with her female titan. He thinks that he can make guns. because he likes them more than an average American. And he suddenly figures out how to control his powers. On the other side, JYN is having a hard time fighting the female titan, who suddenly lets out a loud roar that bursts his eardrums. He loses his sense of balance, and thinks that he is going to die. And even Nato gets ready to step in, but then Shiki declares that he will take the fight up now. He points a powerful grenade launcher at the female titan, and Nato is impressed that he figured it out. Shiki is thrilled to try out his new weapon, but then the female titan attacks him. He dodges her attack and then fires a grenade at her, blowing her apart instantly, and both JYN and Nato are stunned to see his power. The female titan starts vanishing as her fragments are scattered everywhere, and Homer loses consciousness. Meanwhile, JYN is still astonished by Shiki's firepower when it suddenly starts raining blood. However, it was just a blood scattered in the air from Shiki's previous attack, and it soon turns into normal rain. JYN realizes that Shiki's attack did not just kill the female titan, but it also changed the weather. Shiki, on the other hand, does not even think about that. He starts heading towards Homer to see if she is fine, but then his vision gets blurry, and he falls to the ground, unable to move. Just then Nato comes there, telling him that he unleashed a ridiculous amount of blood just now, and that is why his body does not have any strength left. Shiki tells him that he can still go on, and somehow forces himself to stand up. Talitrad. But that does not last even for 5 seconds, and he once again falls to the ground. Nato calls him a noob, who can't even control his power. But he realizes that Shiki's power was beyond anything he has ever seen. He tells Shiki that if he uses up too much blood, he could even die. And that makes him worry about Homer, instead of him. He asks Nato to check up on her, because she might have used a lot of blood, and he is fine being checked after her. Nato was not expecting Shiki to worry about another person, when he himself is in such a serious condition. But just as he is about to help them, JYN launches a surprise attack on him. Thankfully, Nato's reflexes are fast enough to block the attack, and he pushes JYN back, who tells him that they do not need to worry about the losers. Nato asks him what happens if Homer dies because she can't get emergency treatment, and JYN replies that it does not concern him. Nato is disgusted on hearing that, and he makes it clear to JYN that he hates selfish bastards like him. JYN does not care about that either, and he just asks Nato to confirm that he can graduate if he kills him. Nato promises that he is speaking the truth, and that is enough for JYN to dash straight at him. Nato blocks his blood chainsaw using his umbrella, that is made from the same material as the Hulk's pants, because that thing is indestructible. He then presses a button to release a smoke screen, and JYN thinks that he is trying to take him down with a surprise attack. He is confident that he can kill Nato the moment he steps into his range, but the next moment he gets hit by some swift bullets. He immediately takes cover behind a tree, and Nato keeps firing rubber bullets from his multi-purpose umbrella towards him, saying that the bullets won't kill him, but they will hurt like hell. He also purposefully targeted Jai's injured hand earlier for maximum damage. JYN realizes that Nato plans to keep a safe distance between them, because he thinks that he can only use close-ranged weapons. However, he has a few secret tricks for times like these, and he immediately leaves the tree's cover, dodging Nato's bullets before sending some flying blades towards him. Nato dodges them easily, but he is surprised that JYN has a counter for enemies that can fight outside his range. JYN keeps attacking him, and then appears behind him mid-air, thinking that he won't be able to defend now. However, Nato just throws a bomb at him, and JYN panics. Luckily, it turns out to be another harmless smoke bomb, and JYN thinks that Nato is going to shoot him from a distance again. That is why he does not even anticipate Nato coming in from behind and hitting him with a spine-crushing punch. Nato lectures him about being too sure about his predictions in a battle, because that makes him vulnerable to surprise attacks. JYN is too injured and exhausted to even move now, but he keeps trying, and Nato has to invert his umbrella and use it as a cage to contain him. JYN keeps trying to break free from the umbrella, and Nato asks him if he is so desperate to see his dad. He suddenly goes silent on hearing this, and then asks Nato, how did he know about that? Nato replies that he looked into his files, so he knows a few things about him, including the fact that his dad is a mama. While every cell of Jin's body revolts on hearing this, Shiki is shocked to learn that both of them have similar backstories. However, JYN is filled with hatred, as he admits that his father is a mamotero, and that bastard took everything away from him. He killed his family and then did experiments on him, leaving scars all over his body. JYN remembers how he survived on garbage, and the hatred against his father. He swears that he will kill him with his own hands, even if he has to risk his life for that. In his enraged mode, Gwen suddenly gets a burst of power, allowing him to uproot the cage holding him down. However, before he can do anything, Nato grabs him by his face and then slams him into the ground, calling him a stupid brat. He tells him that if he dies while chasing his dream, he is an idiot who will never be able to achieve them. He tells him to live for the sake of making his dream come true, even if it means accepting defeat and humiliation. Gwen finally stops moving with that, and then, Nato calls the school to send a nurse, because he has an injured student here. He informs the school that Homer has been retired from this test because of her blood loss, and Gwen has also been tied up. Shiki, on the other hand, is still standing, and Nato tells him that he has barely 6 minutes before the time limit runs out. He has one of the balls in his hand and tells Shiki that he can either try to take it from him, or find the remaining ball within 5 minutes and reach the school. Shiki says that it is not fair, but he has no choice except playing by NATO rules. He immediately runs away, and Shiki decides to chase after him to see what he does. Meanwhile, Gwen is sitting silently, where he is tied to a tree, when suddenly Shiki pops out of the bushes nearby. He walks over to Gwen, telling him that he will free him, but in exchange he will have to work together with him. Gwen is shocked by this offer, and Shiki says that neither of them can beat NATO on their own, but if they work together, they have a chance. Gwen refuses, saying that being rescued by an idiot will lower his pride, and Shiki does not even bother to debate the point that he is an idiot. He asks Gwen if his pride is more important to him than his goals, because he cannot achieve his goals just by sitting here. Gwen asks fucker him, why does he even care about that? And Shiki reveals that his dad was a Matero too. Gwen is shocked to hear this, and then Shiki pulls the good old Naruto on him, telling him that they are the same. Meanwhile, Nato is looking for Shiki, and since he can't find him, he doubts that he returned. Just then, he sees Shiki running away while cursing Gwen, and decides to corner him immediately. Shiki stops as soon as Nato jumps in, telling him that he is running out of time, while flexing his ball. Shiki starts cursing Gwen in his mind, not because he is not helping him, but because despite being rescued, he wanted to be the one in charge. Just then, Gwen jumps at Nato from above, aiming for the ball, but he easily dodges him. However, that was just a feint, and Jin's real move is to throw a stone tied to a rope at Nato. The rope loops around him, quickly, restraining him, and then Shiki catches the other end. He and Gwen start pulling Nato with all their might, but he digs his heels into the ground, pretty sure that they do not have enough stamina to win against him. Suddenly, Gwen shoots a blood blade at Nato, forcing him to dodge, and he loses his balance in an attempt to do that. That is enough for Shiki, who rushes towards him, and hits the ball out of his hands. The ball lands near Gwen, and Nato is pretty sure that if he tries to take it to the school, Shiki will try to steal it from him. He plans to take it from them while they fight, but to his surprise, Shiki tells Gwen to take the ball and run. Gwen does exactly that, and Shiki keeps cheering on him excitedly. He tells Nato that they got the ball from him, but then, Nato reminds him that only the person who takes the ball to the school passes, and at this rate, that will be just Gwen. Shiki is stunned on realizing that, and Nato realizes that he is a complete who does not think about the benefits and losses before taking any action. He does indeed regret his decisions quickly and yells at Gwen to come back, but he is too far away to listen to him now. Gwen is sure that he can make it back to the school in time at this rate. But then he remembers how this would not be possible without Shiki's help. And suddenly, he can't just abandon him. He turns around and runs towards Shiki, who is dumbfounded, and asks him if he is as directionally challenged as Zoro. Gwen tells him to shut up, because the only reason he is doing this is because he does not want to owe his success to an idiot. He would rather fail and achieve his goal on his own, and that is why he asks Shiki to take the ball and head to the academy. However, just as they are about to make contact, a small pink creature comes running there at great speed, and stops right in between them. Nato immediately pauses the test, telling them that they should not fight when Muku, their high-speed courier delivery pet, is here with them. He knows that Muku is dispatcher only when there is an emergency, and he activates the radio on its back to receive a request for backup from the Kyoto branch that is under attack by the Matero agency. Outside the test zone, the rest of the students are patiently waiting for their turn, thinking that Shiki and others failed because it is already past the time limit. However, Nato returns along with Shiki and Gwen just then, telling the other students that the Kyoto branch is in serious danger, and it is requesting backup, so they are heading there instead of conducting the test. They immediately get on a boat and head towards the Kyoto branch, and the students have mixed opinions about being on actual battlefields. So quick. However, Nato tells them that they won't be fighting, and he only needs them to support the actual fighters. Soon, they reach Kyoto, and Nato leads them to the area around a famous temple, saying that the Oni agency base is located right underneath it. He takes the students to an ordinary-looking restaurant, where a creepy old woman welcomes them. Once they reach the living room, the old woman reveals a secret underground staircase that will lead them to their destination. Meanwhile, at another location, Tsubakiri, a captain of the Mamotero agency, has just finished hunting down a unit of Oni. He calls them a bunch of maggots pretending to be soldiers, and his vice-captain, Yamugi, tells him that he went overboard again. She complains about all the mess he made, because it is going to be a pain to clear it. And Tsubakiri replies that he just gets too annoyed when he sees maggots. He wishes that they got to face a female Oni instead, because they are resilient and can tolerate more pain than males, which makes them a good choice for his experiments. Yumogi tells him that his experiments are disgusting, and she hates them, especially the thing that is walking towards them. Tsubiri tells her not to be cold to his favorite creation, which is a blend of a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. He has named it Ugly, and that is the only thing Yumogi can agree with him on. Tsubakiri says that Ugly is his important research specimen, as well as a loyal member of their anti-ONI biological weapons. Mami Yumogi says that their job is to kill dangerous Oni and save civilians, and he should contribute more to that, rather than wasting his time on creepy research. Tsubiri tells her that Oni blood is a truly fascinating thing, and he is doing his best to help in his own way. He claims that if they can learn how to control on blood on their own, it will surely help the Mamotero agency tremendously. And even better, if they can turn the healing factor of the Oni blood into a medicine, they could become richer than Alain, Jeff, and Zook combined. Yumogi reminds him that even the Mamoteros have similar abilities, and Tsubakiri says that it is not wise to experiment on people. However, the Oni are maggots in his eyes, and he says that they should experiment on them because simply killing them is a waste. A terrified Oni kid hears all of this while hiding behind a corner, and he tries his best to remain quiet. As soon as he hears the footsteps of the two Matero agents head away from him, he takes a sigh of relief, and that turns out to be his fatal mistake, because Tsubiri hears him and immediately comes over to his location. The child freaks out and Tsubakiri decides to take him to the lab. Yumogi tells him that she will knock him out so that he does not create problems. But as she is trying to put him to sleep without anesthesia, a drop of blood spills on Tsubakiri's coat. Yumogi realizes that this means trouble not for her but for the Oni kid. Tsubiri walks up to him and starts kicking him, saying that even though he is fascinated by Oni blood, it is a filthy thing and he won't tolerate it on his uniform. He then danfikisera the kid if his parents live nearby and were they part of the group he just killed. On getting no answer, he lifts up the corpses of the Oni nearby to show them to the kid, asking if his parents are here. The kid is too terrified to even speak, and Tsubakiri decides to crush him with the corpses. Yumogi is creeped out by this, because out of all the Momentero abilities she has seen, Tsubakiri's is the most diabolical. The black mist that comes out of their bodies is actually a special bacteria that lives in their blood, and they can use it to create weapons. Tsubiri, however, can use the bacteria to control corpses, and she still can't get used to it. Soon, Tsubakiri finishes killing the boy, and he tells Ugly to eat the giant Oni dumpling while they go ahead and find more maggots to kill. On the other hand, Shin and other students are walking through a wide tunnel, and Nato tells them that some shops in this area have access to this tunnel that leads to their base. They soon reach the gate that leads them to the space right below the Uruda temple, which is fashioned like a traditional Japanese house. The students can't believe their eyes as Nato tells them that this is the headquarters of the Kyoto division of the Oni agency. Just then, a doctor comes out of a room, complaining about all the work he has to do, but his attitude suddenly changes when he sees Nato. The doctor greets him cheerfully, and then starts fixing his hair as he notices the blonde body. She turns him down immediately, but that does not let the S's heart get broken, because he is actually used to rejections. Shinai who this clown is, and Nato introduces him as Kyoa, the commander of the support unit at the Kyoto base. Kroya adds that he and Nato were classmates back in the academy, but Nato does not have time for his idle chatter, He decides to head to the front lines immediately, and Shin asks him to take him along as well. Other students also want to go with him rather than dealing with a weirdo like Kyoa, but Nato is not going to listen to them. He tells Kyoa to use these brats as he pleases before he leaves. And just then, the nurse tells Kyoa to get back in and do his work. She notices the students from the academy as well, and tells them to get changed immediately because they need all the help they can get. They get dressed as assistant nurses quickly, and then go to the makeshift hospital, where dozens of injured Oni are crying out in pain. One of them has been brought in just now, and he has lost both his legs, along with some other life-threatening injuries. Shiki is horrified to see his condition, and the nurse also says that he has at most 3 minutes left to live at this rate. Kyoa just smiles at him, and says that they won't let him die, and Shiki snaps at him asking him not to make such careless and fake promises. Kyoa appreciates his honesty and kindness, but tells him that he is kind of a big deal here, and he decides to show the kids how real support work is done. In another location, Tsububakiri and Yumoi have just finished dealing with the captain and vice-captain of another group. The remaining Oni are terrified of them now, and Tsububakiri is disappointed that he will have to deal with another bunch of nobodies when he was expecting someone strong. Well, his wishes are granted immediately as Nato comes there, and quickly activates his ability. Subiri is pleased to see him, but Nato does not give him a chance to be happy for too long, as he immediately unleashes his killer move on him. The Onis are really glad to see that Nato has come to save them, but Subiri did not take any damage from the previous attack, as he used the dead Oni captain and vice captain as his meat shields. Turns out, he knows Nato already, and he talks to him like they are old friends. He asks, what is he doing in Kyoto? Because this is not his area. Subiri then remarks that he has heard of a location where the Oni and Kyoto are gathering, and if he just wipes out that place, the entire problem will be solved. Nato keeps up his poker face, as he says that he does not know anything about it, and Tsubakiri replies that he will give up if even Nato claims that the place is not real. He then says that he will go for sightseeing around the big temple instead, and Nato panics inside, because he knows that Subiri has really sharp instincts. He decides to stop him right here and gets ready to fight seriously. Back in the headquarters, Kyoa inserts multiple blood pipes into his body, and Shiki asks if they should not be giving that blood to the injured instead. The nurse tells him to shut up and watch, as Kyoa heads over to the most severely injured man. He asks him if he wants his hands or feet to regrow, because he can't afford both right now. The man summons every bit of his strength to say that he wants his arms, so that he can hug his children again. Kyoya promises that he will be able to do that, but this process is going to hurt like hell. He then slices his wrist open to pour his blood into the injured man's mouth, claiming that it boosts the healing ability of a normal Oni by many times. As soon as his blood starts showing effect, the man starts screaming in pain, and the nurse tells the students to hold him down. Shiki and others immediately follow her orders, and in the meantime, she tells the others to get more blood from the next room. Soon after that, something starts poking through the man's bandaged arms, and Shiki creeps out, as he sees something that vaguely resembles human fingers. Other students get back too, and then suddenly, the injured man regenerates his arms, and even the severe burn wounds on his chest heal completely. Shiki immediately heads over to Kyoa, asking if they can regenerate his legs too, and he affirms but adds that they need to do it over time and using small doses of his blood since he has already consumed too much blood. The injured guy may develop antibodies if he drinks any more of it. Kyoa then heads over to the patient, telling him that he will be retired from the combat unit now, but he can join the support unit to help others out. He says that with a pair of prosthetics he will be playing with his kids in no time, and the man is moved to tears on hearing that. Kyoa then turns to the students, telling them that they could be in the place of this guy in the future. He understands the glory chasing and aura farming that can only be done on the front lines, but he reminds them that people on the front lines can fight bravely only because there is someone to cover their back, and that is the support unit. Shiki and a few others are really impressed by him now, and they tell him that they are ready to help him in any way they can. Kyoa tells Shiki that he needs his help with another matter, and takes him to a depressed girl named Mei, who was brought in yesterday, after the Mamotero agency attacked her. Her parents are still missing, and Kyoa wants to use Shiki's kindness to make the girl feel better. Shiki takes up the job and tries talking to the girl, who gradually opens up to him. He asks her about school, and she tells him that she never went to school. As Shiki is wondering if the girl is a troublemaker like him, the support unit brings in some dead bodies from the battlefield, and Mei's parents are among them. She starts bawling like crazy as she sees them. And Kyoa says that he can't get used to such painful scenes even after all this time. However, there is a deeper and more sinister plan behind the corpses than anyone realizes. Tsubiri tells Nato that he laced some Oni corpses with his bacteria, fully aware that the support unit will take them to their base to give them a proper funeral, and then he can control the corpses from a distance and destroy the base. Nato is shocked to hear this, and Tsubakiri decides to try. If his plan succeeded, he awakens the corpse of Mei's dad while Shiki and Kyoya are distracted, and she is overjoyed thinking that he is still alive. However, he starts strangling her under Tsubiri's command, but Shiki and Kyoya are quick to notice it. Kyoya realizes that this is Tsubakiri's ability, and he immediately tells Shiki to cover Mei's eyes. He obeys the order, and then Kyoya pierces the man's brain with 2 sharp knives, rendering him immobile. Mei starts crying once Shiki lets her see what happened to her dad, and then Kyoya realizes that there might be more puppet zombies here, just like this one. But that is where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.